She noticed an elderly woman struggling to carry her belongings and went over to assist her. In return, the old lady handed her a precious substance that would change her life forever. However, someone close to her later committed a terrible act, and everything began to fall apart. But why did the substance suddenly vanish? And why did the person who took it start running wildly down the street? Take a breath and follow along as we dive into this gripping and powerful story. It was an extremely hot afternoon in a quiet part of the city. The sun was blazing and dust filled the air. Two friends were hurrying down a narrow street. One of them was Mara, a young woman with a gentle face. The other was Jasper, a sharp-looking young man full of ideas. Mara's clothes were worn out, and her face showed signs of exhaustion. She glanced at Jasper and asked, "Are you sure this place is really going to hire me?" Jasper gave a confident smile. "Don't worry, I know the manager there. I'll talk to him. Just come with me." Mara nodded. Her legs were weak, but she kept moving. There was nothing left for her at home. If she didn't land that job, she had no idea what she'd do next. The road ahead looked endless, but they kept going. Mara held on to hope, and Jasper believed his connection would help. As they turned a corner, they spotted an old woman walking slowly up ahead. She was extremely thin, and her legs were shaking. On her head, she balanced a large bucket filled with water. The bucket was too heavy, and the woman leaned to one side, sweat dripping from her face. Suddenly, she paused and called out in a weary voice, "Please, children, help me carry this thing. My body is failing me." Mara slowed down and looked toward the woman. Jasper tugged at her hand. "Come on, we're already late. If we don't get there in time, the manager will leave." Mara looked again at the woman. Her legs were trembling, and she looked like she might collapse at any moment. "But she really needs help," Mara said quietly. Jasper glanced at the woman and frowned. His voice was harsh. "Mara, we don't have time for this," he said. "We're on our way to something important." "Why would she carry that knowing she's too old for it?" The old woman blinked slowly. She said nothing. Her hands still trembled. Mara turned suddenly and looked at Jasper, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Jasper, how can you speak like that?" she asked. "She's elderly. She clearly needs help." Jasper folded his arms and shook his head. "That's not our problem, Mara. Let her rest or wait for someone else. We've come too far to stop now." Mara took a deep breath. "But what if she falls?" she asked softly. "What if we're the only ones who'll help her today?" Jasper looked away in silence, though frustration was all over his face. He tapped his folder against his leg and hissed, "If we miss the manager, don't blame me." But Mara was no longer paying attention to him. Something inside her told her this moment was more important than any job. Mara slowly walked toward the old woman. She bent slightly and smiled warmly. "Mama," she said kindly, "where do you live? Let me help you." The woman looked at her in surprise. "You want to help me?" she asked. "Yes, Mama. Hand me the bucket," Mara said, extending her arm. Jasper stepped back slowly, visibly confused. He watched as Mara lifted the heavy bucket from the woman's head and placed it on her own. The old woman stared at her, almost in disbelief. Jasper opened his mouth to speak but said nothing. He glanced around, unsure of how to react. Mara turned to the woman. "Lead the way, Mama," she said with a smile. As they began walking, something unusual occurred. The blazing sun that had burned overhead suddenly disappeared behind a thick cloud. Jasper looked up, and a strange feeling filled his chest. It wasn't anger. It was the sense that something powerful, something beyond his understanding, was about to unfold. Mara followed the old woman down a quiet path. They soon arrived at a small house at the end of the road. The house looked worn down. The walls were cracked in many places, but the ground was swept clean, and there were fresh flowers near the edge. Mara stood still and looked around. "Is this your home, Mama?" she asked gently. "Yes, my dear," the woman replied, pointing to a small tree beside the entrance. "Please set the water down there." Mara walked carefully toward the tree. She knelt down and gently placed the bucket next to it. As she stood up and wiped her forehead with her hand, the old woman stopped her just before she could leave. "My daughter," she said in a soft voice, "please wait." Mara paused and turned around. The old woman approached and took her hand. "Please," she said, Go to that corner over there. You'll find a small traditional clay pot. Bring it to me." Mara walked to the spot, her fingers trembling as she picked up the pot. She returned quickly, holding it with both hands. "Here you go, Mama," she said, handing it to her. The woman smiled. She gently untied the red cloth and slowly opened the container. Mara leaned in, her eyes wide with curiosity. The woman pulled out something that sparkled. It was a gold bar. Mara's eyes widened even more. She had never seen gold in person before. The old woman smiled and looked at her tenderly. "You have a good heart," she said. "There aren't many like you." She placed the gold into Mara's hand. "Keep it for 7 days. Don't sell it before then. After that, sell it and use the money to change your life." Mara stared at the gold, speechless. Then she fell to her knees. "Mama, thank you," she said, her voice full of emotion. "God bless you. I never expected this. I helped simply because it felt like the right thing to do." The woman nodded and gently touched Mara's head. "Go now, my child," she said with a warm smile. "Your goodness will unlock many opportunities for you." Mara rose to her feet, still clutching the gold bar with both hands. Her eyes sparkled with excitement. She turned around and began walking away at a slow pace, her heart overflowing with gratitude. A broad smile stretched across her face as she made her way home. Every few steps, she glanced down at her handbag, where the gold was safely hidden. The urge to shout with joy burned inside her, but she held it in. As she walked along, passers-by glanced at her curiously, wondering why she was smiling by herself. But Mara paid no attention to them. Her thoughts were fixed on one person, Jasper. "I have to tell him everything," she whispered to herself. Her pace quickened until she was nearly running. When she reached Jasper's street, she spotted him standing outside his house talking on his phone. Her smile widened. She waved and called out, "Jasper!" But he didn't wave back. Instead, he slowly lowered the phone and stared at her with a cold expression. Mara stopped in front of him, still beaming. "Jasper, I have something incredible to tell you," she began. "You won't believe what happened after I left." But Jasper lifted his hand. "So you just walked off and left me, Mara?" His voice was icy. Mara's smile faded away. "I didn't leave you. I stopped to help the old lady, remember?" Jasper shook his head in frustration. "I thought you were serious about finding work, but clearly not. You just threw away the opportunity. Do you think this is some kind of game?" Mara looked down at the ground. "I know what you're thinking, but," Jasper interrupted, "you're always talking about wanting a better future. But when it's time to actually do something, you go chasing after some noble cause." Mara's hands began to tremble. "It wasn't like that. Please, just let me explain." Jasper turned his face to the side. "There's nothing to explain." "Wait, Jasper," Mara pleaded. With trembling fingers, she reached into her handbag. "Just look at this," she said as she opened the bag. Slowly, she pulled out the bar of gold. It gleamed so brightly that Jasper's eyes widened in shock. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, frozen, staring at the gold. Then his voice broke through the silence, low and sharp. "Where did you get this, Mara? Where did it come from? You didn't steal it, did you?" Mara's eyes widened in disbelief. "No, I didn't steal anything." Jasper took a cautious step forward, eyes locked on the gold. "Be honest with me. No one just comes across something like this on the street." "I didn't find it lying around," Mara replied softly. "Just hear me out." Mara locked eyes with Jasper. "The old woman gave it to me," she said quietly, "after I helped her carry her water to her home." Jasper's brow furrowed. "An old woman gave you a gold bar?" "Yes," Mara confirmed, her voice steady now. "Her house was old and she looked poor. But after I helped her, she asked me to bring her a small pot. The gold was hidden inside it. She said it was a gift for my kindness." Jasper didn't respond right away. His eyes went from the gold to Mara's face. His lips moved slowly. "She just gave it to you. Like that?" Mara nodded. "She told me to keep it for 7 days before selling it." Jasper remained silent. His eyes stayed on the gold. Then slowly he licked his lips and smiled. But it wasn't a joyful smile. It was strange, almost unsettling. Mara's heart skipped a beat. She didn't know why, but something suddenly felt off. After Mara left, Jasper stayed outside. He didn't enter the house. He sat down on a small wooden bench beside the wall, eyes fixed on the ground as his mind raced. How could a poor old woman just give someone gold? He muttered to himself. She lives in a broken-down house. She looks like she has nothing. Something's not adding up. He stood up and then sat back down again. I need to find her. I need to see her for myself. He glanced down the road where Mara had come from. Then he whispered, if she gave Mara gold, maybe she has more. The following morning, Jasper left home early. He didn't tell anyone where he was going. He returned to the same street where he and Mara had seen the old woman. He stood beneath a tree and waited. Many people passed by. The sun grew hotter. Still, the old woman never appeared. The next day he came again. No sign of her. On the third day, Jasper was back in his usual spot on the corner of the street. His shirt was soaked with sweat, but he didn't care. Then, he saw her, the same old woman. She was moving slowly down the road, balancing a container of water on her head. Her feet shuffled along the dusty path. Jasper's eyes lit up. He rushed to her side. Mama, please let me carry that for you, he said, reaching for the bucket. The old woman paused and looked at him. She didn't speak right away. She simply gazed into his eyes as though searching his soul. After a moment, she nodded slowly and handed him the bucket of water. Jasper placed it on his head and began following her in silence. Outwardly, he appeared calm, but inside his thoughts were racing. This is my opportunity, he thought to himself. They arrived at the woman's home, just as they had before. The walls were cracked, but everything was tidy. Jasper placed the bucket beside the small tree and turned to face her. He tried to add a hint of sorrow to his voice. Mama, he began gently, I want to apologize for how I spoke to you the last time. The woman looked at him silently. She said nothing. My father is gravely ill, Jasper continued. He's been bedridden for days, and we can't afford the medicine he needs. He wiped at his eyes, though no tears were present. I didn't know where else to turn, he added. That's the reason I came. He bowed his head and waited. But deep inside, he wasn't thinking of any sick father. His thoughts were consumed by the gold. The old woman stared at him for a while before asking, Son, do I look like someone who has money? Her tone was serene, but her gaze was piercing. Jasper opened his mouth but didn't respond. He just stared at the ground and sniffed, still pretending to weep. The woman let out a slow sigh. She turned and walked into her modest home. Jasper remained where he was, watching her retreat. Then he crouched to the ground, covered his face, and let out soft sobs. But his thoughts whispered, if she gave Mara gold, maybe she'll give me double. Just as she reached the door, the old woman paused and turned back to him. Jasper, she called. His head lifted instantly. She pointed. Go behind the house. Under the tree, you'll find a small clay pot. Bring it to me. Jasper jumped up. Thank you, Mama, he said and hurried around the house. Behind a small mango tree, he saw it. A round, dark pot covered with an old cloth. He looked around. The area was empty. Lifting the cloth, his eyes widened. Inside were gold bars. Not just one or two, but many. Jasper clutched the pot, his hands trembling as he stared at the gleaming gold. He scanned the area again. No one in sight. He touched one of the bars and whispered, Should I take them all? She won't even notice. He hesitated. Then he glanced at the sky and let out a breath. No, he murmured. I can't do that. Gently, he placed the gold bars back in the pot, covered it, and carried it to the front. The old woman sat on a bench waiting. Jasper placed the pot before her and gave a forced smile. She looked at the pot, then at him. Slowly, she nodded, as if she already knew what had passed through his mind. She opened the pot, took out one gold bar, stood, and placed it into his palm. Keep this, she said. Guard it for 7 days. Don't use it yet. After that, you can sell it. Jasper nodded eagerly. Thank you, Mama, he said. But inside, he was disappointed. Only one, he thought? Mara got one, and now I get one too. But I saw more. Why can't I take all of it? He smiled politely, but his heart was already plotting. The old woman gestured toward the back of the house. Put the pot back where you found it. Jasper nodded. Yes, Mama. He picked it up and walked around the house. As he moved, he glanced over his shoulder to see if she was watching. Once out of sight, his heart pounded. He bent down, removed the cloth, and stared again at the gold. Smiling, he quickly grabbed 3 additional bars and tucked them under his shirt. Then he replaced the cloth, put the pot back, and wiped his hands clean. Returning to the front, he acted as though nothing had happened. The old woman was now standing by her doorway. She looked directly at him and asked, "You didn't touch anything in the pot, did you?" Jasper laughed nervously and scratched his head. "No, Mama. I just returned it like you asked." She stared at him for a long while, then nodded slowly. "All right, you may go." Jasper smiled once more and turned to leave. But inside, a flicker of fear stirred. Did she know? Had she seen? Still, he walked off, clutching the stolen bars under his shirt. It was a still afternoon. Mara arrived home with a few grocery items. As she neared her door, she was surprised to find the old woman sitting quietly on her doorstep. "Oh, Mama!" Mara exclaimed, dropping her bag. "How are you feeling? Is everything all right?" The woman looked at her. Her face remained calm, but her eyes were sharp. "Mara," she said in a deliberate tone, "did you take my gold?" Mara's eyes widened, her heart leapt. "What?" she gasped. "No, Mama, I would never do that." The woman didn't respond. She kept staring. Mara's hands began to tremble. "I swear to you, Mama," she said, tears brimming in her eyes. "I didn't touch anything." When the woman left, Mara sat on the floor deep in thought. "Why would she ask me that?" she whispered. Then her eyes widened. Her thoughts returned to the gold. She remembered telling Jasper everything, how he stared at the gold. She closed her eyes. "No, he's my friend. He wouldn't..." But something felt off. He hadn't contacted her since that day. He hadn't asked about her, and now the gold was missing. Mara clutched her head with both hands. What if it was Jasper? She didn't want to believe it, but deep down, a small voice whispered, "Go check on him." That night, Mara couldn't sleep. Her heart was too troubled. At sunrise, she walked straight to Jasper's home and knocked hard. He opened the door, yawning. "Jasper," she said firmly, standing in front of him, "did you take the old woman's gold?" Jasper's eyes opened wide, then his brows furrowed. "Me?" he barked. "What are you talking about? Why would you accuse me like that?" "Because she came to my house and asked," Mara replied. "You're the only one who saw the gold besides me." Jasper raised his hand in frustration. "Don't insult me. I don't even know where she lives." "Then why are you yelling?" Mara asked. Jasper turned away. "I'm done with this nonsense," he snapped, walking off and shaking his head. That evening, Jasper returned home whistling. But when he reached his door, he froze. The old woman was there, sitting calmly. His eyes widened. "Mama," he said, trying to smile, "what are you doing here?" She looked up and asked gently, "Where is my gold?" Jasper laughed quickly and scratched his head. "Mama, I put it back exactly where you said. I didn't take anything, I swear." Her eyes remained locked on him. "Are you certain?" she asked softly. Jasper nodded rapidly, though his hands were trembling behind his back. The old woman slowly rose. Her expression was calm, but her words struck deep. "If you've taken it, bring it back now. If not, prepare yourself for the consequences." Jasper opened his mouth, but no words came. The woman turned and walked away without looking back. Jasper stood frozen by his door, one hand on the wall, breathing heavily. He muttered to himself, "She's just an old lady. What could she possibly do? My wealth is coming soon. I'll be fine." He entered and locked the door. But that night, he couldn't sleep. A few days later, something odd occurred. People on the street saw Jasper wandering barefoot. His clothes were filthy and torn, his hair unkempt, his face lost. He laughed and spoke to himself. "Gold, I'm rich," he yelled, tossing sand into the air. Children ran from him. Women shut their shops and stared. "Isn't that Jasper?" someone asked. "What happened to him?" No one had an answer. Mara was walking down the road carrying a small bag. The sun was hot and people bustled around. Then she saw someone approaching. No shoes, torn shirt, messy hair, laughing and muttering. Mara froze. Her heart pounded. She looked again. "Jasper," she cried. The man stopped and looked at her. His eyes were bloodshot. His lips cracked. "Jasper, is that you?" she asked. But he turned away, still mumbling. Mara stood frozen in shock. Then she ran toward him. Before he could get far, she grabbed the back of his shirt. "Stop!" she shouted. Jasper tried to pull free, but he was too weak. "You're not going anywhere," Mara said, holding tight. "Tell me what happened. Who did this to you?" Jasper stared at her with tired eyes. He gave a weak smile and whispered, the gold is talking to me." Mara's hands trembled. She pulled him to the roadside. "Jasper, please, talk to me. What gold? What did you do?" But Jasper only laughed again and pointed to the sky. "Money is sweet," he said, "but it can burn your mind." Mara stared into his eyes and felt a chill down her spine. "Please don't let it be what I think it is." Jasper looked at her, then burst out laughing, wild and loud, like a man who had lost his senses. He spun in circles, arms raised high. "I took her gold! I took it!" he shouted. "It was me!" He clapped and laughed again. People on the street paused to observe. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others whispered to one another, "This young man has gone insane." Mara stood there stunned, her mouth slightly open. She stepped closer to him, grabbed his arm and asked, "You mean you stole the gold?" "Jasper, please be honest with me." Jasper stared at her with wide eyes, then grinned strangely and began dancing in place. "I told the pot to stay quiet," he muttered, pointing upward. "But it screamed. The gold was heavy, but I hid it under my shirt." "Shh! Don't let the tree hear." Mara took a step back, horrified. "You lied to me, Jasper. You said you didn't take it. Why did you deceive me?" Jasper broke into laughter once more. "I was going to build a palace in the clouds, a huge one with golden chair and a talking door." He rambled, crawling across the ground. Mara gasped, covering her mouth with both hands. Tears streamed down her face. Jasper had completely lost his mind, and now she understood why. Around them, people were still watching from a distance. She tightened her grip on Jasper's arm. "You're coming with me," she said firmly. "We're going to the old woman now." But Jasper screamed, "No, let me go. The gold is mine. Mine and the frogs." He kicked and flailed, trying to break free. Mara clung to him, her forehead drenched in sweat. "Help me," she cried out. "Someone, please help me hold him." Jasper rolled on the ground, laughing and shouting. "The sky is falling. The sky is falling." A tall man wearing a cap stepped forward. "What's going on here?" he asked. Mara turned toward him, still holding on to Jasper. "Please, sir," she said. "This is my friend Jasper. Something's wrong with him. He's lost his mind." Jasper was now crawling on the ground, talking to a rock. "I need help getting him somewhere safe. Please." The man glanced at Jasper, then nodded. "All right," he said. "Let's carry him together. He needs help immediately." Jasper suddenly stood up and cried, "Don't let the pot see me." The man grabbed one side of him, Mara took the other, and together they walked slowly toward the old woman's home. They arrived at the small compound. The sun was setting, casting long shadows. Everything was quiet. The old woman was sitting on a wooden bench outside her house. A walking stick rested beside her, and her eyes were fixed on the ground. She didn't lift her head. She looked like someone lost in deep thought, weighed down by sorrow. Her face remained composed, but her gaze was weary, as if she'd been waiting. Jasper mumbled behind Mara, "The pot, the gold." The frog said, "Don't touch." Mara ran ahead and dropped to her knees in front of the old woman. "Mama, please," she begged. "Please help." The woman slowly lifted her head, locking eyes with Mara. Mara turned and pointed behind her. "It's Jasper. He's the one who took your gold. He lied to you, and now he's gone mad." The old woman didn't reply immediately. She listened in silence. Mara's voice trembled. "Please help him. He keeps saying your name. He says only you can help." The old woman turned her gaze to Jasper. She took a slow step toward him. Her eyes were piercing, yet her voice remained gentle. "When my gold disappeared," she said, "I asked him. I looked into his eyes." She gestured toward Jasper, who was now giggling and drawing on the ground with his finger. "I gave him a chance," she continued. "He said no. He lied." Mara looked up quickly, concern flooding her eyes. The old woman shook her head gently. "Now what's happening to him? It didn't come from me. It came from above. I cannot help him." She turned to leave, but Mara sprang up and grabbed her wrapper tightly. "Mama, please," she pleaded through her tears. "Do it for me. I know he did wrong. I know he took what didn't belong to him." The old woman paused. "Please," Mara sobbed again. "I'm begging you. Help him. He's in pain." There was a long silence. Even Jasper went quiet. He looked up slowly, as if her voice had broken through the fog in his mind. The old woman turned and looked at them both. "Let me think," she said. She studied Mara for a long while. She saw the tears, the desperation, the way Mara clung to her. Finally, she nodded slowly. "If it weren't for your pure heart," she said, "I wouldn't do this. He lied, he stole, he mocked me." She glanced at Jasper, who was now sitting in the dirt, giggling as he tugged at blades of grass. "But because of you," she said softly, "I'll try. I'll try for your sake." The old woman took a deep breath and walked slowly over to Jasper. He looked up at her with a strange, vacant smile. She didn't smile back. She placed her right hand over his chest. Then with one firm strike, then another, she pressed her palm into his heart. Jasper's body trembled. Then he collapsed flat on the ground, unconscious. Mara screamed, "Mama! What did you do?" The old woman lifted her hand into the air and said calmly, "Now we wait." The atmosphere stilled. Jasper lay motionless. No one said a word. Mara leaned down and gently touched him. She shook him. "Jasper, wake up," she whispered. "Please, wake up." Jasper stirred. Slowly, his eyes fluttered open. He blinked and looked around. "Where am I?" he murmured weakly. Then he saw the old woman beside him. His eyes widened. He tried to stand and flee, but Mara and the man quickly restrained him. "Easy, Jasper," Mara said. "You're safe. You weren't well. You were out of your mind." He looked puzzled. "What? Mad?" "Yes," Mara said. "You were talking nonsense, walking around barefoot." Jasper turned toward the old woman. You helped me?" he asked. The woman said nothing. Mara nodded. "Yes, Mama brought you back." Jasper fell to his knees. "Thank you, Mama. Thank you for saving me. I didn't know what I was doing. Please forgive me." Mara looked at him gently. "Jasper, please. Where's the gold? Tell the truth now." Jasper scratched his head. He looked at the ground. I gave it to someone," he said quietly. "To who?" Mara asked. "Who did you give it to?" "I don't know his name," Jasper replied. "But before everything went dark, he called me. He said the gold had changed." "Changed?" Mara asked, frowning. "What are you talking about?" Jasper looked terrified. He said it turned into red pepper. I don't know how. That's what he told me." Mara stood, shaking her head. "Jasper, are you still lying to me? Do you think I'm stupid?" "I swear," Jasper insisted. "That's what he said." Mara gave him a skeptical look. The silence returned. Just then, the old woman slowly raised her hand. "Mara," she said calmly. Mara turned to face her. "Jasper is not lying," she said firmly. Mara's eyebrows lifted. "What do you mean, Mama?" The old woman sat on the wooden bench beside them. She looked down for a moment, then back up. "The gold didn't become pepper," she said. "It was retrieved by its true owner." "What?" Mara gasped. "I don't understand." The old woman nodded. "The gold wasn't mine. I was simply its keeper, for a spirit. When Jasper took it, the spirit came for it. That's why he lost his mind." Jasper's hands trembled. He looked down, trembling. The woman reached into her wrapper and pulled out a small black pouch. "This," she said, "is the gold. It returned to me yesterday. I didn't summon it. It simply appeared at my feet." Mara stepped back. "So, everything he said was true?" "Yes," the old woman replied. "He was punished for taking what was not his. But now the gold is back where it belongs." Jasper dropped to his knees again. "I didn't know," he said. "I thought it was just money." The woman looked at him and said, "Not everything that glitters is meant to be yours." A heavy silence fell. Jasper remained on his knees, filled with shame. He lowered his head and said, "Mama, I'm sorry. I didn't understand. I'll never make that mistake again. Never." She gazed at him for a long moment, then finally said, "It was greed that brought this on you." When something isn't yours, leave it. Appreciate what you have. Don't let your eyes mislead your heart. Jasper nodded quickly. I get it now, Mama. I truly do. Then the woman turned to Mara, her voice much gentler. The gold I gave you. Tomorrow is the 7th day, isn't it? Yes, Mama, Mara replied. Tomorrow makes 7. The woman smiled faintly. Good, don't delay. Go and exchange it. Use it wisely. Use it to shape your future. That gold was meant for someone with a kind spirit. It found you because you helped me without expecting anything. Mara's eyes filled with emotion. Thank you, Mama. Thank you so much. The woman slowly stood up. You both may leave now. What had to be done is done. Jasper bowed his head. Thank you, Mama. Mara echoed. We're truly grateful. They walked out of the compound together in silence. Neither of them said a word, but both understood. Life would never be the same again, and that's how it all ended. Mara was rewarded not because she asked, but because of the goodness in her heart. Jasper learned, painfully, that taking what isn't yours will never end well. What is stolen may seem sweet in the moment, but in the end it brings disgrace, suffering, or madness. The message of this story is clear. Do good even when no one is watching. Be thankful for what you have. Greed can destroy, but kindness opens doors that even wealth cannot. Now it's your turn. What did you learn from this tale? Which moment touched you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading each one. A new story is coming in a few days, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when it drops. If this story moved you, click the like button and share it with your friends. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, stay kind, stay wise, and stay blessed.